What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the third part of my series introducing you guys to some of my Barneck Scrub Pythons. This is probably the episode you've all been waiting for. I'm going to be showing off a good amount of my adult Barnecks. Not only are some of these my favorite animals in the collection, but it'll also give anyone a good idea who is interested in getting into these snakes of what you're really looking at for a full-grown adult. So without further ado, let's get out the first snake. All right, so here is the first female. This is one of my offspring from my first ever clutch of scrub pythons that I hatched out in 2020. They were Barneck Scrub Pythons, obviously. This is one of the holdback females. So this size and age is, at least for what I know now, about what I would say is adult size, or like the bottom end of reproductive maturity. Scrub pythons in the wild have been documented laying eggs at about 2 years old, but I think in the captive setting, that might be a little too extreme. So a snake that is about this size and this age is about how big I would try to breed one. My barometer for that is when they can handle a large rat pretty easily without leaving too much of a lump in them. I find that at about that size, their back third is of the size that they would really need to be to carry a healthy scrub egg fully to term. With all that said, though, this girl is absolutely gorgeous, super high contrast with her bands, some cool zigzag pattern up at the top of her body, and then kind of a cool like tiger striped tail down by the end as well. I'm going to show you guys a couple of her siblings as well during this video, and to kind of show how variable individual clutches of Barneck Scrub Pythons can be. That's one of my favorite aspects of them, amongst many other things, but the variety in a clutch really is incredible. Kind of like playing the lottery a little bit, where you're really not totally sure what you're going to get. You have a bit of an idea based on the appearance of the parents, but in my experience, in every clutch, at least one snake, it looks nothing like I would have expected considering the parents. So this girl is absolutely beautiful, and I'll show you guys a couple more of her siblings. All right, so this is another sibling from the clutch, and this girl is probably the biggest one of the clutch. Fed on the exact same feeding schedule. She's almost 10 feet long already at 4.5 years old, which is really crazy to me, at least as far as what I was kind of anticipating their growth rate to be, especially considering that I don't feel like I'm feeding them at a rate that is excessive by any means. But as you can also see, very different color and pattern wise as well. Overall, a lot lighter. Her bars, while they are there and are fairly high contrast, are a bit more spread out than that last female. And then her tail fades to kind of a patternless, kind of lighter color overall, compared to that other one that had a little bit more striping going on in the tail. So again, just another example of just how variable these snakes are, even within individual clutches. But yeah, I mean, this snake at this size is basically about the size to be able to eat a jumbo rat. In my opinion, once scrub pythons get to about that size, aside from feeding them up during breeding season, there really is no reason to feed that snake more than about once a month. So at that point, husbandry does become pretty routine on these snakes. As with any bigger python or boa, once they reach adult size, maintaining that physical structure really doesn't take a whole lot. And scrub pythons are definitely prone to obesity in adulthood. So once you get an animal to about the 7 to 8 foot range, you really need to be careful to feed them in a moderate way and really manage their weight to make sure that they're not becoming overweight so they can have a long, healthy, and very fruitful life. All right, so this is the third female sibling from that clutch, and my personal favorite from the clutch. You guys may recognize her from the Scrub Python Complex overview video. She was the snake I use as an example of Barneck Scrub Pythons. And to me, she is one of my absolute favorite in the collection. That high contrast banding, that almost orangish gold base color, really strong neck banding, and then kind of her mottled almost and kind of striped tail as well. Really, really cool look overall. What's so nice about these Barnecks is that they keep getting better and better as they grow. So the full-grown adult version of these snakes is when they're going to look their absolute best. I love snakes that are like that, to where they keep improving with age, and even 20 plus years old, they're still going to look as good as they did when they were younger. I can only imagine how this girl's going to look when she's full grown. She's probably about 8 feet right now, so I would say about another 2 feet of growth to go for her, and probably about doubling up in thickness as well, and probably about doubling her head size on top of that. So another gorgeous raised up scrub python that is just now coming into adulthood in my collection, and probably not this year, but maybe next year could get a clutch of eggs from her. All right, this here is another captive bred female. She was born in 2019, and she is from what I am tentatively calling my Melanistic line. That would be all the offspring that have come from my female that is almost solid black. She's a really incredible snake. And very few of her babies have actually kind of assumed her phenotype of being mostly melanistic. This girl was very interesting when she was young. I received her when she was about a year old. And until she was probably about 3 or 4 years old, she looked completely axanthic. It's kind of black, silver with some blue coloration coming through. As she's gotten older, she has yellowed out a little bit, but definitely has a very unique coloration for a Barneck Scrub Python. And kind of depending on where she's at in her shed cycle, can still appear somewhat axanthic as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what her offspring one day will look like. I definitely have very high hopes for them. And even on top of that, she's going to be part of the next generation of captive bred scrub pythons. So, F2 Barnecks potentially not in the too far future, as were all those other females I just showed previously. This girl is one that I really, really hope to get babies from in the next couple of years. All right, so this girl here is a sibling of that last one. So you can see they do have some resemblance of each other, especially in their pattern, but this girl is a lot darker, very high contrast banding, really textbook banding throughout her body, fading into dark patternless tail. Really amazing look. And this girl is a good example of what happens when scrub pythons are fed minimally when they're young. When I received this girl, she was about a year and a half old and was the size of a neonate. And at 5.5 years old now, she's about the size that I would have wanted one to be, kind of approaching 4 years old, maybe 3.5. So it took her a little bit to kind of catch up to where she should be. But luckily, she was still young enough to where that was possible. And I do believe that she will end up reaching an adult size. Definitely a good example why you shouldn't hold meals while they were young. These guys definitely do well, growing a lot, especially in the first year or two of so of life. And then once they get to a bit of a larger size, slowing them down so that they don't get obese as adults. But with that said, this girl did recover nicely from that setback. And I do believe that she's going to get a good bit bigger than this. Just an absolutely gorgeous snake, one that I also hope to get babies from in the future. All right, now moving on to some of the big adults. So this is really the size that an adult female Barneck Scrub Python will get. She's probably about 10 to 11 feet long, and pretty large snake overall. Not quite what you would see in a Burmese or a retic, but still a pretty large, impressive python. She's got some really nice banding throughout her body, really nice coloration as well. She is a wild caught. She's going to be part of bolstering captive bloodlines for years to come. A snake like this is very important for the longevity of its species in captivity. I really love how dark patterned she is, those kind of defined portholes on the side, her nice kind of golden base coloration, golden tan. Definitely a snake that will add some good genes and some good phenotype into some of my more heavily patterned Barneck projects, and a girl that I really hope to get a clutch from sometime in the near future. All right, this is another one of my big adult females. This girl is pretty special to me. She produced a clutch for me back in 2022, of which I showed you guys a bunch of the offspring in a previous Barneck video. They came out really nice high patterned animals with some really good gold influence on them. As you can see, she has a lot of that same coloration as well. Really nice dark pattern and pretty cool deep gold coloration as well. To get another clutch from her would be absolutely awesome. And what would make that even better is potentially being able to put her with a captive bred male. So those would still be technically F1, considering she is a wild caught, but either way, to get some of that diverse captive bred lineage into some of these wild caught adults is going to be a big aspect of moving this project and the species forward in the future. So this is another one of my adult female Barnecks. She's on the smaller end of the spectrum as far as my adults go, but still adult size nonetheless. She is one of the more unique Barnecks I've ever seen in my entire life, particularly with her neck bar. How it almost isn't even present, where it's kind of like, it's almost like the ink like bled over the lines way too far. It's a look I have never seen on another Barneck scrub before. And then just her overall coloration is a very strange pale color, almost in the right light. Sometimes she looks kind of almost axanthic-ish, and then kind of fading down into a dark tail. Another part that's super interesting is just how tight her bands are together. From where they start until when the tail goes to patternless, she just has a much larger density of bands than most Barneck scrub pythons will get, which is really interesting to me. And I bet, if and when one day she has offspring, that they'll have that kind of tight banded look as well. I did get a clutch from this girl last year. Unfortunately, it entirely went bad. So nothing to show for it, unfortunately. But next year, I'm hoping she is back developing, and hopefully we'll get some babies that are from this lineage. All right, so some of you guys may recognize this girl from still pictures that have been in some of the previous videos or from my Instagram, but this is one of my favorite adult Barneck Scrub Pythons in the collection. This is one of the girls that I got a clutch from last year in 2024, and those babies are what I would say are my favorite scrub pythons that I have hatched out to date. Her gold coloration is really second to none on almost any Barneck Scrub Python I've ever seen. What's really cool as well is how she has a light tail, how Barneck Scrub Pythons essentially have two different tail phases. Either their base color continues to their tail, where either they kind of continue down to their tail with the base color that you see in the first half of the body, or their tail fades to black. With the lighter colored palette, like this girl right here, I really like when the tail goes to the lighter color. So definitely a very special girl, one that I hope to get some more babies from sometime in the future. All right, last but most certainly not least is this girl right here. So for anyone who's been following me for a little while, you probably have seen this girl. This is my Praline Barneck Scrub Python. And she is definitely a fan favorite for a lot of people, and for pretty obvious reasons, that overall super dark coloration, high contrast banding, those strong portholes on the side, that dark tail is really an incredible look. It's really cool to have a snake that can trace back to one of the older lineages of Barneck Scrub Pythons that are still around. There aren't too many, unfortunately, but this Prada lineage is one of them that myself and a couple other keepers still have as part of their collection. So I really hope to be able to get a clutch from her at some point. She has made that a difficult reality for me to achieve so far. Try to breed her a couple of seasons to no avail. So hopefully one day she decides that she wants to become a mom. I can only assume that her offspring would be some of the absolute best that I've ever seen. All right, everybody, thank you for checking out that video. Hope you liked seeing some of the bigger Barneck Scrub Pythons I have here in the collection. If you liked the video, please subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Like, comment, share, hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode. I drop a new one every single Friday here on the channel. You can find me on Instagram at Scrub Shepherd, Facebook at Stephen Cush. You can also join the Somalia group on Facebook, a good community that we have started over there, talking all things Boelen's pythons, scrub pythons, the entire Somalia complex. I also have a podcast every Wednesday night on the Trap Talk Reptile Network called Cush's Corner, and I'm on Morph Market as well under Cush Reptile. You can find all of the links in the description below. With that said, thank you guys for checking out that video, and I will catch you back here next week for a new one.